Welcome. My name is Garland Vance with Advanced Leadership. I'm the author of this book called Getting Unbusy. And today I have the privilege of being with and interviewing Jerry Beers, who is actually one of the first people who ever went through the Getting Unbusy online course. Jerry, I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, you bet. I'm glad to do it.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, your life, your work, your background. We'd love to hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, I am married. I have three kids. My youngest last year just went to college, so we're on our own now. And
Wow.
we took the opportunity to move from the Dallas area, where we lived for a number of years, to Florida. So I live in the Tampa area now, Clearwater Beach, and loving living here. I also co-founded a company called 5-Pack Creative with my best friend, Kevin Legg.
Hmm.
He lives in Tulsa, and we both run 5-Pack, doing mobile software development for companies like American Airlines and Match.com. And
That's
we
awesome.
have great fun doing that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And how long ago was it that you established 5-Pack Creative?
5-Pack started as sort of me as a freelancer in 2008. And I think we kicked off as a official company in 2011 timeframe.
Okay.
So
Okay.
early 2011.
Awesome. What was life as an entrepreneur like for you early on?
Yeah. So I think most entrepreneurs are used to wearing many hats, and probably also like to wear many hats. They like doing a lot of different things, and not being just in sort of one funnel, but jumping around and taking care of a lot of different things and making sure they're all going well, and winning in all of them. And that was very much me. I not just with my company, and the company itself has a service component, and also we also have a product. And so I would wear a lot of different hats on the product side, a lot of different hats on the service side, but also just in my life in general. I like to be pretty involved with our church, and of course, as our kids were growing up, with their school and their lives, and as a husband and a father, and the hobbies that I have, just lots of different things that I like to do and like to be involved in, and learn about or participate in.
Okay. So if I could sum all that up, it's safe to say that life as an entrepreneur and dad and churchgoer and community involvement may have made you a little busy in your time. Is that true?
It gave me a lot of opportunity to be very busy. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think back on those years, I mean, just give an estimate. How many hours a week do you think you were working in the early days of 5-Pack Creative?
One of the things that I had kind of struggled with and played around with and learned a little bit before coming across your book and material was the concept of setting boundaries. And so at first, so our company, 5-Pack, is remote and distributed. Most of our people do not work in an office. They work out of a home office, or they go into clients' offices, that kind of thing. I've worked from home for a number of years now. I'm pretty spoiled with it, but along with the obvious advantages and short commute comes some disadvantages. Work is always right there. There's a mental barrier to leaving your work at the office and going home, and ending your day and knowing that, okay, I've quit work now. But when you're not working in an office and your office is just in the other room, at least in the beginning, it was always kind of calling my name. Like, you've got emails that are unanswered, or you have schedule for tomorrow to look at, or you have work or leadership things that you could be doing. And so at the beginning, I probably struggled with that quite a bit. I don't know that I don't have like an hours per week that I would work, because it was all the time. It
Yeah.
was, if I was awake, I was if I wasn't actively working, I was thinking about work. I was thinking about what I should be doing or trying to solve a problem that had been left unsolved. Obviously, I wasn't working 24 hours a day, but that was the mindset for me, was always thinking about, especially when you're trying to grow the business and you're still not sure if it's going to catch hold, and you're trying to get the next deal and that kind of thing. I was always thinking about the lead that I got in my inbox that I haven't answered yet. How am I going to answer that? And what can I say, or how can I price this to, have the best chance for success? And so pretty quickly realized that wasn't survivable and sustainable. And so set some boundaries for myself around. One thing that really helped was having physical separation, having an actual office that was separate from where I would do other things, even to the extent where, maybe if I liked a computer game or something like that, I either wouldn't play it, just to get away from the computer for a while, or I would go away, I would shut everything down for the day, shut down my calendar, shut down my email, and then come back later and maybe play, or if I had time or something like that. But for the most part, it was that physical stepping away, making sure that it was in a different place, and that I set a line for myself of, at the beginning, I didn't even have a line that was the same every day.
Yeah.
It was just when I got to a point that I felt was the stopping point for the day, I mentally made that switch to, okay, I'm done working for the day. I give myself permission to not think about, what I need to be doing. And of course, your subconscious is always working on problems, and, I would solve problems in the shower the next morning or something like that. But for the most part, just giving myself that permission to not feel guilty about not going back to the desk, not going back to work, was a boundary. And then, of course, when I read that in your material, I that really resonated with me, because it was something that I had kind of come across through trial and error. So
Yeah. I think what you're talking about right there, Jerry, is so important, especially in kind of a COVID world right now, where people have been forced into a remote world, and a lot of them haven't made that transition. So I know I didn't tell you I was going to ask this question, but I think it's an important enough question. If you could give advice to somebody who's made the transition, right, who's now working from home and their kids are at home, and they have this world, what are some boundaries that you would encourage them to do, or some practices, I should say? What are some practices you would encourage them to do to separate their work from the rest of their life that's all in one house right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's a balance to the answer, because there's a huge advantage from working from home. And one of those advantages is, if you have a kid at home and they have something important come up, whether it's it's important to them, it's an emotional issue, or just a time where you want to communicate to them that you're more important to me than my work is. That's a balance. You could stop what you're doing sometimes and pay 100% attention to them, and hear whatever is on their heart, or whatever is the urgent pressing matter of their day, and communicate that to them, that you love them, that you care about them, that they're very important to you. And then you can, when that is done, stop and go back to work. And that's great. And that's fantastic. And I don't think that we should throw that out in the process of trying to set up those boundaries of, well, work is work and home is home. It's great that I can sometimes stop on a dime. Now, of course, if I'm in the middle of we've all seen the clip where the guy's on a video remote with the TV news or something like that, and his kids come running in the office and his wife's trying to drag him out. Like, sometimes that happens, right? I'm on a call, I'm on a Zoom call, or I'm on a conference call with somebody, and it's just a time where I shouldn't be interrupted. And I think one of the things is just being really clear with your family. If your kid's old enough to understand, tell them, look, I love that I can be home and I can go out in the backyard and play with you, for our lunch hour or for a break or something like that. But there are some times when dad or mom needs to get some work done, and I'm going to communicate that to you by having my bedroom door closed, or my office door closed, or my closet door closed, or whatever you use as your space of, this is where I'm cordoning off for work. And it's not going to be perfect. Kids are kids, and so sometimes they'll still come barging in when you're on the news. But I think having that communication with them and just saying like, there are times when I'm going to be able to be there for you, and then there are times when I'm in a call or something like that with somebody, and I'll get to you after that because you're important to me, and I'll still hear what you want to tell me, but it just is going to have to wait. So having that separate is good, but I've alluded to it a couple of times. I think it's really important to have an area that is dedicated just to your work. And if you have a separate room, a spare room that you could dedicate, that's great. If you don't, that doesn't mean that you can't do it. You still should have some way that you can separate off, your workspace from your living space. And if, even to the extent, like I was talking before about, I would get up, and if I wanted to watch a video on YouTube or something like that, just for a break or something like that, I might actually get up and walk into the living room and watch it on my phone or a tablet or the TV or something like that, rather than on my computer, just to help me decompress
Yeah.
and not feel like I'm always on and like, okay, I'm watching this video, but what's going on over here? And what, who's texting me and what emails have come in. And you need to have some time where you just kind of get away from that. And if you have a time where you take a break, I'm a strong believer that you should create white space in your life, whether it's between meetings or just a break in the afternoon or morning, or stepping away for lunch, stepping away for lunch or something like that. I think that's really important to do.
Yeah. Man, I could have used you reminding me of this last night. It's always funny when you write about getting unbusy and publish this book. A lot of times people assume that it's, you get it right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And getting unbusy is really the ideal, and I don't get it right. I get it right a whole lot more than I did back in 2013 when it almost killed me. But yesterday, so I have my office is right beside the bathroom to our house, and so I had been doing some yard work, and I was like, I'm gonna get a shower and get ready for bed, and decided I was gonna come over and check something on my computer at my office, check something completely not work related. And I turned it on, and as soon as I turned it on, there was my email. And
Yeah.
it's like this, tractor beam that just draws you in.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Yeah.
I found myself after about 3 emails, I was like, whoa, 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 what am I doing? I've already done my my workday boundary. Like, I'm done. I'm moving toward my end of day boundary,
Yeah.
where I shut down for the day. And here I am getting sucked into these emails. So I'm going to need like a little Jerry Beers bobblehead right by my computer to remind me, don't even open the computer right now.
Right. Right.
So you were one of the first, I alluded to this earlier, you were one of the first people who, even before Getting Unbusy was published as a book, who you bought the online course and started going through it. Was there ever a time in your life where you just had this moment where you were like, I'm too busy and this is doing damage to me?
Honestly, no.
Good.
The thing is, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you talk about this in the book, see busyness as a badge of honor. And that's really, I think, where I was at. I don't know if I would go all the way to badge of honor. I saw it as really a necessary component of being an entrepreneur and being and working for yourself. And it was a mutual friend of ours, Scott Wozniak, that just told me, "Hey, you should check this out." And on the way to that recommendation, I did. I checked it out and just really opened my eyes to even the possibility that what I was doing wasn't the best way to live my life. And I'm very fortunate. I consider myself fortunate that that I learned that I learned from you before I got to the point where my health was at a crisis, or my marriage was at a crisis, or something like that, to wake me up to say, you need to change something that you're doing.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it really lessens to me. Somebody said, experience is not the best teacher. Other people's experience is the best teacher.
Yes.
And I think that's really where I'm at. I think I was able to, I had enough of the experience in my own life that the things that you said really resonated with me. And I was able to take them to heart really before it was, at a critical point.
Yeah. Jerry, I think one of the things I love so much in the conversations that you and I have had is you have been willing to challenge the assumptions of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I love that about you. I think there are certain fields like accounting. Accountants assume that they have to work 100 hours a week during tax season, and I think
Right.
entrepreneurs are even worse than that. We tend to, and I say that to myself, right? I'm an entrepreneur, not as good as you are, but I am an entrepreneur. But we tend to convince ourselves that we have to work 80 or 90 hours. We have to drive ourselves into the ground. We have to really kill ourselves, and that's the only way to success. And you've built this successful company, but in the midst of that have done well in not driving yourself to the ground. So that's just one of my favorite things about you, is that you've really challenged the assumptions of what it means to be an entrepreneur and work ridiculous hours.
I think one of the, there's really two concepts that I'm not even sure where I came across them, but that really helped me in that regard. One of them is that in your business, succession planning is not something that you do when you're ready for somebody to succeed you.
Mm.
It's something that you do really from the beginning. And the second concept is really similar. It kind of goes hand in hand with that. And that is, you should be continually trying to work yourself out of a job, in that you are teaching, assigning, and delegating to other people the things that you've learned that you can teach them, that fit within their wheelhouse of what fits their personality and their job description and things like that. And keep for yourselves the things that only you can do, or that you are best positioned to do.
Yeah.
So as the leader of your company, you're the one who's best positioned to set the vision and direction of your company. That's not something that you want to delegate to, everybody in your company, as a, hey, where should we go? And just kind of go where the herd goes, right? You're the one who's positioned as a leader. Your position gives you that. And then there are some things that your personality or your sum total of your experiences sort of gives you as the reason, maybe even why you started your business. You have a passion for something, or you saw a problem that you felt like you could solve. But there are pieces of that. And I think the trap is the opposite. The trap is, if I want to get it done, I got to do it myself. There's no one who's going to do a better job than me because I'm the owner. And so you start accumulating all these responsibilities and all these things. And well, I kind of delegated that, and it kind of, somebody dropped the ball. So I'll just take that one, right? I'll take this one too. And I'll take this one. And before long, like, you've got this pile of things in your arms, and there's no way you could do them all. And so you're like, either you're just like, and you just let it all fall, or you try to take one off the top and say, hey, here, go do this. I know you're not going to do as good a job as I would do, but go do it. I don't really have time to teach you how to do it. You just got to figure it out. And it's a recipe for disaster in so many different ways. It's better to say, of the things that I have, what can I carve off? What can I give to somebody else? What is it that somebody else can do? And even if they're only going to do, probably they're going to do a better job than me in reality, right? But in my mind, if they're only going to do 80% a good job is what I would do if I did it myself, that's okay. That's 80% is probably good enough. And I can teach them along the way. They can learn how to do that thing and do it well. And they can learn how to teach somebody else how to do that thing and do it well. And in doing that, you set yourselves up set yourself up to grow, because the other way, you grow only when you can't hold all the balls anymore. You're dropping stuff. It's you're like, okay, I've got to have somebody who takes this. The other way around, you're growing, and the work sort of expands, I think, to fill that capacity. You have
Yeah.
more and more capacity, and the work expands to fill that, and you get more work, and you get more capacity, you get more work and more capacity, and that's how you grow. And along the way, you find yourself at a point where you are ready to step back some, or you're ready to hand it off to somebody, or ready to sell the business, or whatever it is. And you find that, hey, I've trained this whole infrastructure of people who can do the things that I can do. There's this core thing left that either I'm going to sell it off to somebody or give it to a partner or something like that. They're going to have to take responsibility for that core thing that I still had left. But it's not this big weighty thing of, well, in order to put a succession plan into place, I've got to spend the next 5 years training somebody on everything that I know, because I've spent the whole existence of my company training everybody on what I know. So I
Yeah.
think those two things go hand in hand, but they also fit really well in the model of not trying to just work yourself into the ground.
Yeah. Man, I love that. I actually had a boss early on in my career who delegated a significant responsibility to me. And I had done the work, and but really got stuck at this point where I didn't think I could do. I couldn't do it as well as I wanted to. So anyway, I went back to that boss and said, "Hey, I need you to pick it up from here and to finish it off." And it didn't feel good in the moment, but my boss said to me, Garland, I delegated both the authority and the responsibility, which was important that he did both. But he said, I delegated to you both the authority and the responsibility of this, and I will take it back. But if I take it back, you'll never get it again. Do you want that? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
I want the increased responsibility and the authority in this area. Then he said, okay, then you've got to figure it out. And it was, he kept himself from getting a giant monkey back on his back. And could he have done
Yeah.
it better? Absolutely. He
Yeah.
could have. I was a 27-year-old guy who didn't know what I was doing at the time. But he did a great job of really delegating something to me, and setting himself up to have more and more freedom to do the things that he needed to do as a leader.
Yeah.
Well, so Jerry, let me ask a little bit just about your getting unbusy journey. Tell us a little bit about the steps that you've taken and the progress you've made so far.
Yeah. 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 I think the first most important thing, like I said, was because I wasn't specifically looking for that, was just opening my eyes to it, and then just the permission
Mm,
to get unbusy and to say no to new obligations. I think that was probably the critical first step for me, and uh, really started taking a look at what are the things in my life that it's a hard exercise. What
mm,
are the things that I need to cut out, or what are the things that that I should, that if they came to me today, that I would say no to, that I need to
mm.
figure out how to wrap that up, or do it with honor, but back out of a commitment. And the thing that's hard about it, I think, is it's like you say, it's not that we're busy because we have so many bad commitments. It's because we're doing too many good things. They're good things. And I think that my filter was set at, when an opportunity or a thing comes to me, is it good or is it bad? If it's
Mm,
good, then I'm going to try to figure out a way to do it. And I think that that's probably common, that people are
yeah.
like, this is a good thing. I should figure out how I can do this thing. And when you start doing as many good things as you can at church and at home and with your kids and with your spouse and at work and your hobbies and your friends, like all of a sudden you've got a huge universe of things that you're trying to keep all going at a sustainable pace. And it's just it's just impossible to do. And so I started looking at things from a filter of, not necessarily, is this a good thing, or even is it something that I can help with or that I'm willing to help with, but is it something that aligns with my purpose, the
Mm,
thing that I need to be concentrating on? And it's there's an opportunity cost to not focusing on. You have something that it's not a singular thing in your life that this is the only thing I'm going to focus on and nothing else, but there is a thing that is your purpose that is um, uh, maybe the best way to say it is that there's probably a singular thing for different areas of your life, right?
right. Okay.
There's a sort of a singular focus with my work, and there's a singular focus with my family.
Mm,
And by thinking about it that way, and thinking about these other things that come in as um, are they going to add to my purpose, or are they going to steal from my purpose? If they're
mm,
taking focus away from this other thing, there's an opportunity cost to me saying yes to this. It's not just, is it a good thing or not a good thing? It's that in order for me to say yes to this, I'm going to have to take some focus away from something else, something else in my business, or some time for my family, or something like that. And is that thing an opportunity that's worth me taking that focus away? And sometimes the answer is yes, right? It's not
right.
that you say no to everything. It's, there are things that come along that you didn't expect, that are a unique business opportunity that you really want to take advantage of, or a way for you to generate exposure or something like that that you weren't expecting. But I think by thinking of it in those terms, it helps you to see, okay, if I do say yes to this, then where am I going to get that time?
Mm,
Because we only have 24 hours, right? So
right.
where am I going to, the commitment that I'm saying yes to with this, where is that going to come from?
Mm,
Well, I'll put this other thing on a back burner for now. It can rest for a while, or I'll choose to take some time from my hobby. Um, you know, I think I think that's a risky one, because there are a lot of times when that's an easy one to steal from. I'll steal from my own personal time, and if you do that to the extent that you have no personal time, I don't think people understand sometimes what impact that's going to have to not have downtime. I'm
right.
always going, I'm always doing this, even if some of it is fun stuff for me, if I don't have downtime, that's my own personal time, then that starts to impact my emotional health or my mental health.
Right.
And so recognizing that, okay, if I'm going to make that trade-off, then, maybe I'm going to have to take a day off a month just for, some personal rest time, or just to recover and
Mm,
recoup, and how am I going to do that? And so it still is, I think, a balancing act. And in some cases, especially as an entrepreneur, I think it can be a little bit of a juggling act.
mm,
But like I said, I think entrepreneurs like to wear many hats, and those challenges of, how am I going to make this puzzle fit, right? How am I going to
yeah.
fit this new piece in that I wasn't expecting, and make it all fit with everything else, and still keep track of doing things productively and with purpose, and maintaining peace, right? I don't want to give up peace in order for purpose and productivity. And
Right.
I don't want to give up any one of those three for the others. I want to have a balance between those things. And so finding that balancing act and where that works, I think is sometimes a challenge that's a invigorating one, and you figure out how to make that all work.
Yeah. So I'm interested, as an entrepreneur, you've got this successful business. Have you found ways to help this unbusy mindset? Uh, have you found ways to have that infiltrate the company as a whole?
So I think it starts with just an example, right?
Mm,
Me as an example, I think if people see that, um, I don't have to really preach the mantra in order for them to see that, oh, he always takes his lunchtime as personal time, and doesn't let meetings start to encroach on that.
mm,
I don't really have to say that for people to see, like, okay, that's something that I could do. It's
yeah.
okay for me to say, I'm going to take an hour out in the middle of the day and just go, uh, have some personal time, or have some time with the family, or something like that. That's stepping away from work to give my mind a break, so that I can dive back in with energy when lunch is over. Um, I think that's really the first thing. Um, I don't, I haven't yet, other than just sharing your book with my business partner, I haven't yet really instituted any um, processes or procedures in the company to do that. Or we are doing a sort of a book club kind of thing where a remote distributed teams were across the US. So we do that via Slack.
Hmm.
And people will just read and then just kind of share their thoughts on Slack about that chapter, and then we kind of move forward. And I've done that. I've started that with a couple of other books. I plan to introduce yours in the mix as well. So I think that that's something that would be really valuable for a company to sort of go through and talk about. What does this mean? And just know that the expectation from the top, because I think some of those expectations really do, some of them come from within. People's own personal drive kind of leads them to do things, but some of them come from, oh, my boss is expecting me to work weekends or work 80 hours or whatever it is. And if you start setting up, I expect you to have an end of the day. And that end of the day could be 6:30 for you. It could be you want to work from noon until 8, or whatever it is. Working from home kind of gives you that flexibility to an extent, but if I communicate that expectation that I do expect you to have a time where you cut off work and you set a boundary for yourself and you move into something else, something with your family or a hobby or church or something extracurricular that's just not work. I think that that's a powerful thing. And I think even to the point where I try to be pretty specific with people. If they'll text me or Slack or something like that on a Sunday, I usually answer them on a Monday, and I'll say, I don't really work on Sundays. And so not in a demeaning way or anything like that. I just want to communicate to them that this is a boundary that I have for myself, that I have one day a week, and it doesn't have to be Sunday, but for me, it usually is that I don't do any work on that day, that I give myself permission to have that day off, and that I don't have the guilt that kind of can come with, if you just take a day off occasionally and you don't have that set up as a regular thing, then your mind can still be like, well, I'm taking a day off, but I should be doing this, or there's still this thing that I have to do. If you just kind of give yourself that mental break of like, oh, it's okay to not think about work today because I don't do work on this day, then it's a huge sort of emotional break to let your body recover.
Yeah. And I've seen so many employees over my years of working with organizations and truly being one of these myself for a long time. I've seen so many employees whose default is that they don't feel like they're meeting their boss's unmet expectations or unsaid expectations. And so they don't know what their boss expects. And because they don't know that, the assumption is my boss expects everything. So if Jerry texts me at 2:00 in the afternoon, I've got to respond immediately. And if he texts me at 2:00 in the morning, I've got to respond immediately. And I think there's such value in not only setting this example, but like you're saying of, hey, I don't work on Sundays, and the implication there is, and you don't have to either. I don't expect you to be on all the time. Well, Jerry, let me ask you one last question, and I'm always hesitant to say last question because it could always expand. But if you could give any advice to entrepreneurs about living with purpose, productivity, and peace, what would your advice be to them?
So, to me, I think the just narrowing it down to one is tough, right? But I think the permission to say no and to default to no was big. But then probably the most important thing was scheduling your relaxation and relationships before you start filling up your schedule with the purpose and productivity pieces, right? It's I don't know, this is kind of off the cuff, but if you think about peace first and then fill in the gaps with purpose and productivity, it works.
Mm.
If you think about purpose and productivity first and you leave the leftovers for peace, a lot of times peace suffers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that to me, it wasn't necessarily that I hadn't heard a lot of the things that you talk about in the book. There were a lot of the things that I had heard. The way that they were put together, I think, was important.
Mm.
And um, you may have seen the illustration where somebody takes a jar and they try to and they fill it up with rocks and they say, is it full? And then they pour sand in between the rocks, and then they pour water in between the sand, right? And it works that way. And it doesn't work the opposite way. If you
Yeah.
fill it up with water, you can't then put the sand in and then try to cram the big rocks in there. And the sort of takeaway from that is big rocks first. And I think that was a critical thing for me of making sure that the things that do tend to get short shrift or get leftovers or left behind, by scheduling those, like I mentioned, lunchtime, or if I have because I work from home and have the benefits of being able to be flexible with my family, if the kids have something at school, or my wife has something that we're going to do together, I put it on my work calendar and I make sure that it's blocked off. And I think by doing that, the rest of the space is always going to fill up, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't have an actual meeting on the calendar for this time block, you're going to find something to do with that time. It's not true the other way around. If you have that time, you're usually going to lean towards work because it's where the momentum is. It's where you're thinking about. It's what you're trying to get some traction behind and that kind of thing. And by making sure that you're intentional, even if you have a period of time, say you have a busy week and you've got a critical deadline at the end of the week, and you say this week is just going to be kind of nuts. That's okay as long as it's not every week.
Yeah.
But I think being specific about it and being intentional about it, and even telling your family, like, this week is going to be a little bit different, and I may not be as available for mid-afternoon play dates that I normally would be, but next week we'll make it up, right? We'll go to the movies, or we'll do something fun, or but I think that doing that with intentionality and thinking about it and making sure that as you're going back through and reflecting on how things are going, I think that's a very important component. That you look and see, okay, what was out of balance? Well, maybe I was intentional about being out of balance and I was a little bit geared towards work, or geared towards a charity that I volunteer with, or something like that this week. How am I going to put that back in balance, or maybe even counterbalance it next week? I think that reflection is really key, and always learning, always iterating, always making sure you're improving the process, and not holding yourself to the standard of perfection, which was something that I really had to kind of get over, right? I felt like that's the goal, right? I'm trying to work myself towards executing things perfectly, and executing on my business perfectly, and executing for my clients perfectly, and make sure my family's perfect as well, make sure my kids do everything perfectly, right? It's an unattainable goal. And I think that having it even as a goal can be dangerous, because you start expecting things out of your kids or other people or your employees that is unrealistic, and even of yourself. Like, you hold yourself to that standard, and you feel like if you achieved anything short of perfection, that you failed. And I think that it's okay that's what I like about having your purpose well defined, is that that you can accomplish your purpose even with road bumps along the road, right?
Absolutely.
Your destination is at the end of the road, and you're like, but there was this pothole, and I took that detour that I didn't even mean to take, but that's okay, because you get yourself back on track because of your purpose. You know what your purpose is, and you have that in your sight. It's okay to it's not that you want to make mistakes, but you're going to make mistakes. And in the reflection part of the process, you could say, okay, that was a mistake, and here's how I'm going to correct it.
Right.
This is my purpose. This is my destination, my end goal. I'm going to get back in line with that, and kind of course correct. I think those kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Man, Jerry, thanks so much. I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs that need to hear that of, it's about progress. It's about focusing on your purpose, doing the course correction. It's not about perfection.
Right.
It's really, is there momentum? Is there progress that you're making
Yeah.
in that regard? Jerry, thank you so very much for being here, for talking with me, and for talking with people who are high achievers like yourself, but who are wanting to live it a different way. And I think your story is such a huge benefit for us to hear about how to be an entrepreneur without working crazy, stupid hours and sacrificing your family and your health and everything else. So thanks for being awesome. If anybody wanted to ask you a question or find out more about you, what's the best way that they would do that?
Yeah, you can email me at jerry@jerrybeers.com. Happy to answer any questions that anybody might have, or help in really any way that I can. I love to teach, and I love to help people, and so happy to hear from you that way.
Awesome. Now, one last thing I do want to say is Jerry and I got to meet each other in person in Dallas when he was still living there, and we went go-kart racing, and it was Scott Wozniak, who you mentioned earlier, yourself and me, and I didn't know Jerry, but you and Scott were talking trash the whole time about who was going to be the fastest. So just real quickly before we stop recording, who won that? I can't remember for the life of me. Who won that go-kart race?
I think this is the part you planted to edit out. Is that right?
That's right.
I think we just ran out of time. Yeah. That was an exercise in humility, because Scott and I were just like ribbing each other all night long. Hey, Garland, want to come with us? Yeah, you're not invited next time. He blew us out of the water.
Awesome.